The massive warship hung in the void like a predator waiting to strike. Its hull, darker than the space around it, bristled with weapons that could reduce entire planets to ash. Inside, Queen Zarathal stood before the viewing port, her 6 arms folded behind her chitinous back. Her species, the Veltar, had conquered 17 star systems in the past century. They were known throughout the galaxy as the most feared warriors, with their razor-sharp claws, armored exoskeletons, and towering 8-foot frames. But, today, something was different. Today, they faced humanity. My queen, General Korth approached, his heavy footsteps echoing in the command chamber. The human vessel approaches our position. It's small. Zarathal's compound eyes shifted toward the tactical display. The human ship was indeed tiny compared to their dreadnought, barely the size of one of their fighter craft. It bore no visible weapons, no armor plating, no signs of military might. Just a simple white hull with blue markings. "One ship?" she asked, her voice carrying the natural clicking sound of her species. "They send one ship against our entire fleet?" "It appears so, Your Majesty. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. A single human aboard, requesting permission to board." The Queen's mandibles clicked with what might have been amusement. In all their conquests, no species had ever willingly approached them with such audacity. Most civilizations either fled or fought desperately when the Veltar Armada appeared in their skies. None had ever sent a single representative. What does this human want? They claim to be a diplomat. They wish to discuss terms. Zarathal turned away from the viewport, her massive form casting shadows across the bridge. Her warriors stood at attention, awaiting orders. Each one was a perfect killing machine, bred for war, trained from birth to show no mercy. They had never known defeat. Terms? The word felt strange on her tongue. What terms could these soft creatures possibly offer us? She had studied the human files. They were small, weak, with no natural weapons or armor. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. Their worlds were poorly defended. The Veltar War Council had expected this to be their easiest conquest yet. Allow them to board, she decided. I am curious to see what courage looks like when it comes from such a fragile species. An hour later, the airlock hissed open. Queen Zarathal waited in the reception chamber, flanked by her elite guard. The room itself was designed to intimidate: high ceilings, dark metal walls, and the skull trophies of conquered enemy leaders mounted like warnings. The human who stepped through the threshold was nothing like she had expected. He was average height for his species, maybe 6 feet tall, with graying hair and kind eyes. He wore simple dark clothing with no armor, no weapons, no protection at all. He looked around the chamber with obvious nervousness but no fear. Your Majesty, he said, offering a slight bow. His voice was soft, respectful. I am Dr. Marcus Chen, representing the United Earth Coalition. Thank you for agreeing to see me. The Queen studied him carefully. This was the enemy? This soft, aging creature who looked like he might teach children rather than command armies? Her guards tensed, ready to tear him apart at the slightest signal, but she held them back with a raised claw. Dr. Chen, she said, testing the unfamiliar human name. You stand before the Queen of the Veltar Empire, conqueror of 17 worlds. Your species faces extinction, and you come here alone. Are all humans so foolish? The human's expression didn't change. Perhaps, Your Majesty. But we prefer to think of it as hope. Hope. Another concept that felt foreign to her. The Veltar knew only strength, conquest, and survival of the fittest. Hope was weakness. Speak your terms, human. What can your dying species possibly offer the mighty Veltar? Dr. Chen reached slowly into his jacket, and immediately every weapon in the room was aimed at him. He froze, hands visible, then carefully withdrew a small device. May I show you something, Your Majesty? It's just a holographic projector. Curiosity won over caution. She nodded. The device activated, filling the air between them with images of Earth. Not the military installations or fortified cities the Queen had expected, but something else entirely. Rolling green fields under blue skies. children playing in parks, elderly humans feeding birds by a lake, musicians performing for crowds who swayed and smiled, artists painting murals on building walls, scientists working together in laboratories, their faces bright with discovery. "This is what you'll be destroying, Your Majesty," Dr. Chen said quietly. "Not just lives, but all of this. Every song that won't be written, every painting that won't be painted, every child who won't grow up to make the universe a little brighter." The Queen stared at the images, her compound eyes reflecting the soft light. She had seen the records of conquered worlds before, always military data, population centers, resource distribution maps. Never this. "You show me weakness," she said, but her voice lacked its earlier edge. "Your species is soft. Sentimental. This is precisely why you will fall." "Yes," Dr. Chen agreed, surprising her. "We are soft. We cry at sad stories. We keep animals as companions even though they serve no practical purpose. We spend resources on art and music when we could be building weapons. We're terribly inefficient from a military standpoint." He paused the hologram on an image of a young girl helping an elderly man cross a street. "But, Your Majesty, I have to ask you something, and I hope you'll forgive the personal nature of the question." The Queen's guard shifted, but she was intrigued despite herself. "Speak. When was the last time someone told you that you were beautiful?" The question struck her like a physical blow. Beautiful? Her? She was a weapon of war, a creature bred for battle. Her carapace was scarred from 1,000 fights, her claws stained with the blood of enemies. Beautiful was not a word in the Veltar vocabulary when applied to warriors. "I am not beautiful, human," she said, but the words came out as almost a whisper. "I am made for war." Dr. Chen looked at her directly, meeting her alien gaze without flinching. "I think you're wrong, Your Majesty. You're magnificent. The way you move, the intelligence in your eyes, the strength you carry, it's beautiful in its own way. Different from human beauty, yes, but no less real." The chamber fell silent. Her guards looked confused, uncertain. No one had ever spoken to their queen like this. No one had ever seen her as anything other than a weapon. "You seek to confuse me with strange words," she said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. "I seek to show you what we see when we look at other beings, Your Majesty. Not threats to be eliminated, not resources to be harvested, but individuals with their own worth, their own beauty, their own right to exist." He gestured to the hologram, which now showed humans of all ages working together to build something, a school, perhaps, or a community center. "We believe that every sapient being adds something unique to the universe. The Veltar have added strength, honor, military discipline. These are valuable things. But imagine what else you might add if you didn't have to spend all your energy on conquest." The Queen found herself staring at the images again. The humans in the hologram looked content. Not the grim satisfaction of victory she was familiar with, but something lighter, warmer. "You propose what, exactly?" she asked. "An alliance, Your Majesty. Not surrender, partnership. Earth offers our knowledge, our different way of seeing things, our softness, if you will. In exchange for your protection, your strength, your wisdom in matters of defense." "And if I refuse?" Dr. Chen's expression grew sad. "Then, you'll destroy us, Your Majesty. We both know this. But you'll also destroy the possibility of something new. Something that neither of our species could achieve alone." The Queen was quiet for a long time, studying this strange human who had looked at her, a creature of nightmare to most species, and somehow found beauty. Her counselors would call it madness. Her generals would demand his immediate execution for the insult of suggesting the mighty Veltar needed anything from these weak creatures. But something in his words had reached a part of her that had been buried under centuries of warfare. A part that remembered, dimly, what it was like to create rather than destroy. "I will consider your proposal, Dr. Chen," she said finally. "You may return to your ship. I will have an answer for you within the day." As the human left, offering another respectful bow, Queen Zarathal found herself looking at her own reflection in the darkened viewport. For the first time in her life, She wondered what she might have become if she had been born into a world that valued beauty alongside strength. The thought terrified her more than any enemy she had ever faced. Queen Zarathul stood alone in her private chambers, the vast space feeling smaller somehow after her encounter with the human diplomat. The walls were lined with weapons from a dozen worlds, trophies from countless battles, and yet tonight they seemed different. Less like symbols of triumph and more like decorations. Empty decorations. She activated her personal communicator and contacted the ship's database. "Show me detailed files on human culture," she commanded. For hours, she studied. Music that made her chest ache in ways she couldn't understand. Art that seemed to capture emotions she had no words for. Stories of humans sacrificing themselves not for conquest or glory, but simply because they couldn't bear to see others suffer. One recording particularly caught her attention. A human female, ancient by their standards, sitting beside a bed where another human lay dying. The old woman was singing softly, holding the other's hand. There were tears on her face, but her voice never wavered. She sang until the other stopped breathing, then sat in silence for a long time before finally whispering, "You were so beautiful, my friend. I hope you knew." The queen replayed the recording 3 times before she understood what she was feeling. It wasn't the satisfaction of victory or the clarity of purpose she was accustomed to. It was something else entirely, a longing for connection that had nothing to do with dominance or submission. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. General Korth strode in, his massive frame filling the doorway. Behind him came Admiral Vextal and Warprime Durgon, her most trusted commanders. Their faces bore the familiar expressions of warriors preparing for battle. "My queen," Korth began, his voice carrying the ritual respect of their military hierarchy. "The War Council has reviewed the humans' proposal. We are unanimous. These creatures seek to weaken us with their strange ideas. We recommend immediate bombardment of their homeworld. The fleet stands ready." Immediate bombardment, she repeated, testing the words. How many times had she given such orders? How many worlds had she watched burn from the bridges of her ships? "Yes, Your Majesty. We can have their civilization eliminated within hours. Their pitiful defenses will not even slow our assault." Admiral Vextal stepped forward. "My queen, I've analyzed their military capabilities. They have no weapons that can penetrate our shields, no ships fast enough to escape our pursuit. It will be swift." Warprime Durgon nodded in agreement. "Their soft words are psychological warfare, nothing more. They seek to confuse us, to make us doubt our purpose. This has always been our way: we conquer, we expand, we grow stronger. These humans would have us abandon everything that makes us Veltar." Queen Zarathul listened to her commanders, these warriors who had served her faithfully through 17 campaigns. They spoke truth, from their perspective. The Veltar way had brought them to this pinnacle of power. Their empire stretched across light years, their enemies fled before them, their name was whispered in fear across the galaxy. And, yet. "Tell me, Korth," she said quietly. "What do you see when you look at me?" The general seemed taken aback by the question. "Your Majesty? I see our queen. Our greatest warrior. The Blade of Veltar, conqueror of the 17 worlds, terror of the dash." "Yes," she interrupted. "Titles. Accomplishments. But, what do you see?" The 3 commanders exchanged glances. This was not their queen's usual demeanor before a battle. Forgive me, Your Majesty, but I don't understand the question." She turned to face them fully, her compound eyes reflecting the chamber's dim light. "The human looked at me and called me beautiful. Not mighty, not fearsome, not powerful. Beautiful. When was the last time any of you thought of me as anything other than a weapon?" Durgon's mandibles clicked with confusion. "Your Majesty, with respect, beauty is irrelevant. You are perfect as you are, the ultimate expression of Veltar evolution. What more could you need?" "That," she said softly, "is exactly what I'm beginning to question." She moved to her private viewport and gazed out at the human ship, still holding position nearby. So small, so fragile, and yet it had accomplished something no enemy fleet had ever managed. It had made her doubt. Your Majesty, Admiral Vextal said carefully, perhaps you should rest. The strain of command can sometimes. I am not tired, Admiral. I am thinking. She paused. Have any of you ever created anything? Anything that wasn't meant for war? Another exchange of confused looks. Created, Your Majesty? Built something beautiful rather than functional. Written words that weren't tactical reports. Made music. Art. Anything that served no military purpose whatsoever. The silence that followed was answer enough. General Korth cleared his throat. Your Majesty, the Veltar are warriors. We create weapons, strategies, victories. These other things, they are distractions. Weaknesses that our enemies indulge in while we grow stronger. And, yet, the Queen said, still watching the distant Earthship, those weak humans traveled here alone, unarmed, to face certain death for the chance to save their people. Tell me, Korth, is that not its own form of courage? It's foolishness, Your Majesty. Useful foolishness that we can exploit, but foolishness nonetheless. She turned back to her commanders, these loyal warriors who had never questioned her orders, never doubted their path. Looking at them now, she saw something she had never noticed before. They looked tired. Not physically tired, but something deeper. They had been fighting for so long that they had forgotten what they were fighting for. What happens after we conquer Earth? She asked. We move to the next system, Your Majesty. The Zenthari Republic has 3 worlds ripe for dash and, after that? The Morrigan Alliance controls dash and, after that? Durgon paused, confused by the line of questioning. We continue expanding, Your Majesty. As we always have. Forever? Until we control the galaxy, yes. That is our destiny. Queen Zarathal felt something shift inside her chest, a crack in the armor of certainty she had worn for so long. And, then, what? When we rule everything, when there's no one left to conquer, what do we do then? The question hung in the air like a challenge none of them could answer. Your Majesty, General Korth said slowly, you're speaking as if conquest is not its own reward. We are Veltar. This is what we are. Is it? She moved closer to them, her presence still commanding despite her questions. Or is it simply what we've always done because no one ever showed us another way? She activated a wall display, bringing up the recordings Dr. Chen had shown her. The images of Earth filled the chamber, children laughing, artists creating, scientists discovering, musicians playing for the simple joy of it. Look at this, my generals. Really look. These humans face extinction, and yet they still spend time on these frivolous pursuits. Why? Admiral Vextal studied the images with visible distaste. Because they are weak, Your Majesty. They waste resources on meaningless activities instead of focusing on survival and expansion. Do they? The Queen zoomed in on an image of human children playing in a garden while their parents watched. The adults' faces showed something she was only beginning to recognize, contentment that had nothing to do with victory or defeat. Or have they found something we've been missing? War Prime Durgon stepped forward, concern clear in his voice. Your Majesty, this human's words have disturbed your thinking. Perhaps if we simply eliminated him and proceeded with the bombardment - no. The word came out sharper than she intended. He will not be harmed. But, Your Majesty - I said no, War Prime. That is an order. The 3 commanders fell silent, recognizing the tone that brooked no argument. But, their confusion was palpable. Your Majesty, General Korth tried again, what are your orders regarding the human homeworld? Queen Zarathal turned back to the viewport, watching the small Earthship holding its position despite being surrounded by enough firepower to crack a continent. I want to speak with Dr. Chin again, she said finally. But, this time, I want him to come to my private chambers. And, I want to speak with him alone. Absolutely not, Your Majesty. The security risk - I am not asking, General. I am commanding. The 3 warriors bowed reluctantly, but she could see their concern. In their eyes, she was no longer the predictable weapon of war they had served under for so long. She was becoming something else, and they didn't understand what. After they left, Queen Zarathul returned to her studies of human culture. But, this time, she found herself focusing on something specific: the way humans looked at each other. The way they spoke to those they cared about. The way they touched without violence, embraced without conquest. For the first time in her life, she wondered what it would feel like to be seen not as a force of destruction, but as someone worth caring for. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it filled her with a strange anticipation that felt almost like hope. Dr. Marcus Chen stood before the doors to the Queen's private chambers, his heart beating faster than he cared to admit. The Veltar guards had escorted him through corridors lined with weapons and battle trophies, past chambers where warriors trained in combat forms that could tear a human apart in seconds. Yet here he was, about to meet privately with the most feared ruler in the galaxy. The doors slid open with a whisper, revealing a space unlike anything he had expected. Gone were the skulls and weapons of the public areas. Instead, he found himself in a room filled with star charts, botanical specimens from dozens of worlds, and what appeared to be art, though art unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. Crystalline sculptures that seemed to grow from the floor like alien trees, their surfaces catching and refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Queen Zarathul stood before a massive viewport, her silhouette framed against the stars. She had removed her ceremonial armor, revealing the natural grace of her form. Without the intimidating regalia of war, she looked different. Still magnificent, still powerful, but somehow more real. "Dr. Chen," she said without turning around. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit." He settled into a chair that had obviously been adjusted for human proportions, a thoughtful gesture that surprised him. "Your Majesty, these sculptures are beautiful. Did you create them?" She turned, and he saw something in her compound eyes that he hadn't noticed before: uncertainty. "You think they are beautiful? Truly?" "Absolutely. The way they capture and transform light, it's like frozen music. I've never seen anything like them." For a moment, the Queen said nothing. Then, almost hesitantly, "They were a hobby. Something I did between campaigns when sleep would not come. My advisors always said it was a waste of time." Dr. Chen stood and approached the nearest sculpture, studying its intricate facets. "It must have taken incredible patience to create this. And skill. How do you shape the crystal?" "With sonic resonance," she said, moving closer. "Each frequency creates different patterns in the molecular structure. It requires delicate touch. The same hands that command fleets," he observed, "create beauty in their quiet hours." Queen Zarathul stared at him. "You truly see no contradiction in this?" "Why would I? Your Majesty, humans have always believed that the capacity for creation and the capacity for destruction can exist in the same person. Some of our greatest artists were also warriors. Some of our most fierce generals wrote poetry." She moved to another sculpture, this one spiraling upward like a frozen tornado of light. "I made this one after our conquest of Kethmore. Their cities burned for weeks, and I found myself wondering what their artists might have created if given time." The sadness in her voice was unmistakable. Dr. Chen felt his throat tighten. "Your Majesty, may I ask you something personal?" She nodded. "When you were young, before the wars and conquests, what did you dream of becoming?" The question seemed to hit her like a physical blow. She moved away from him, her 6 arms wrapping around herself in what looked almost like a defensive posture. "Dream?" The word came out broken. "Veltar do not dream, Dr. Chen. We are born, we are trained, we serve the Empire. I was identified as genetically superior and groomed for leadership from hatching. But surely you had moments, private thoughts, wishes for something different?" She was quiet for so long that he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, barely above a whisper, "I wanted to explore. Not to conquer, just to see. To visit worlds and learn about their cultures, their art, their music. I wanted to understand why different species created different beauty." She gestured toward her sculptures. "I collected samples from every world we conquered, trying to understand their aesthetic principles. I told myself it was strategic intelligence, but really, I just wanted to know how they saw the universe. Dr. Chen felt tears welling in his eyes. Your Majesty, you could still do that. It's not too late. Isn't it? She turned to face him, and he saw a vulnerability that made his chest ache. I am the terror of 17 worlds, Dr. Chen. Billions have died at my command. I am not someone who gets to explore and create. I am something to be feared. You're someone who was never given a choice, he said firmly. But, you have one now. Do I? My generals expect me to destroy your world within hours. My empire depends on constant expansion to maintain control. If I show weakness, Majesty, may I tell you what I see when I look at you? She nodded, though her posture remained defensive. I see someone who creates beauty in secret because she's afraid others will see it as weakness. Someone who collects art from the world she conquers because she recognizes the value of what's being lost. Someone who asks me about dreams because she's never been allowed to have her own. He paused. I see someone who's been carrying the weight of an entire empire's expectations since birth, and who's never once been told that she matters beyond her usefulness as a weapon. The Queen's composure finally cracked. A sound escaped her that might have been a sob if she had been human. I don't know how to be anything else, she whispered. Dr. Chen slowly approached her, moving carefully, non-threateningly. When he was close enough, he did something that should have been impossible. He reached out and gently touched one of her armored hands. She could have killed him instantly. Instead, she stared down at his small, soft fingers resting on her chitinous claw. Your Majesty, he said softly, what if I told you that Earth doesn't want to surrender to the Veltar Empire? What if I told you that we want to surrender to you, personally? Not as a conquered people, but as friends who see your potential for something greater than war? I don't understand. We want to offer you something no one has ever given you before, a choice. You could have a place where you're valued not for your military might, but for your wisdom, your creativity, your unique perspective. A place where you could explore and learn and create without anyone telling you its weakness. Her hand trembled under his touch. My people could learn a new way too. Your Majesty, the Veltar are magnificent warriors, but they're also intelligent, capable of growth and change. Under your leadership, they could become something unprecedented in galactic history, a race that chooses cooperation over conquest. The Empire would fracture. Other species would attack us if we showed weakness. Then, we'll defend together. Earth may not have your military might, but we have other strengths. Our diplomatic corps could help negotiate peaceful solutions. Our scientists could work with yours to develop defensive technologies. Our artists could help your people rediscover forms of expression beyond warfare. Queen Zarathal looked at this small, brave human who had somehow seen past her fearsome exterior to the person she had never been allowed to be. If I agree to this alliance, she said slowly, I'll be asking my people to abandon everything they've ever known. Everything they are. No, Your Majesty. You'll be asking them to become everything they could be. She was quiet for a long time, staring out at the stars. Finally, she activated her communicator. General Korth, report to my chambers immediately. Bring Admiral Vextal and War Prime Durgan. Within minutes, her three top commanders stood before them, their eyes taking in the scene, their queen standing beside the human diplomat, her hand still in his. My queen, Korth said carefully, have you reached a decision regarding the human homeworld? I have, she said, her voice stronger than it had been in hours. We will not be destroying Earth. Instead, we will be entering into an alliance with humanity. The three warriors stood in shocked silence. Furthermore, she continued, I am declaring an end to the Veltar expansion campaigns. Our empire is large enough. It's time we learn to build rather than simply conquer. Your Majesty, Admiral Vextal said urgently, this is madness. Our entire society is built on our entire society, the Queen interrupted, is built on the assumption that strength can only be expressed through dominance. Dr. Chen has shown me that there are other forms of strength. Other ways to matter in the universe. War Prime Durgan stepped forward. Your Majesty, with respect, you cannot simply rewrite the nature of our species. We are what we are. Queen Zarathal moved to one of her crystal sculptures, running a claw along its surface. Tell me, Durgan, what is this? A decoration, Your Majesty. No. It's proof that we can be more than what we've always been. I created this. Not with weapons, not with conquest, but with patience and care and love. The word felt strange on her tongue, but right. If I can learn to create beauty, then our people can learn to create peace. She turned to Dr. Chen, whose eyes were bright with tears of hope. Dr. Chen, will you help me contact Earth's leaders? I believe we have much to discuss. As the human activated his communicator to reach his homeworld, Queen Zarathal felt something she had never experienced before: excitement for a future that held possibilities beyond war. For the first time in her life, she was not just the terror of 17 worlds. She was Zarathal, artist and dreamer, ready to discover who she might become when given the chance to choose her own destiny. And, in the reflection of her crystal sculptures, surrounded by starlight and the promise of peace, she finally saw what Dr. Chen had seen from the beginning: that she was, indeed, beautiful.